For Dr. Mark Akin, his pond and garden are more than a way to work up a sweat on the weekends. It's a place of solace after on-call hours, and where he and his wife Debi navigate with their family and friends. The gardens hosted weddings and receptions and momentous family events, like when Debi and Mark returned from his kidney transplant operation, with her as donor. They were up for another challenge when they bought the property in the first place.
When we bought this lot, several other people had tried to buy it before us and were discouraged because it had water on the lot. There was a natural spring that kept the whole back part of the lot wet. And not being a water gardener prior to building the house, I had no experience with ponds at all. And as we tried to figure out how to harness the spring water, a decision was made, well, gee, if we've got water, why not use it somewhere? And one thought led to another, and I had a landscape architect, Kurt Arnett, that helped me immensely with the design.
Mark has learned a lot since his mistakes as a novice ponder in 1996. Thanks to Anita Nelson from Nelson's Water Gardens and the Austin Pond Society, he was soon on the right water track.
I really had no experience when I got into this, and without the Pond Society, I could not have accomplished most of what I've done with the pond. There was a funny thing. At one meeting they asked how many people there had their own pond, and about 80% of the people raised their hand. And the next question was, how many of you plan to build another pond? And about 80% of the people raised their hand. And ponds are really fulfilling. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I have my master's degree in engineering. I'm bent a little bit different direction than some people. And essentially, I've planted the vast majority of the plants here myself. I've totally maintained the pond since day one myself. And but ponds are easy. You put your plant in a basket, in a pot, and so you have to plant it in the spring, and then about once every 3 or 4 weeks you put a little fertilizer pill in, and but you don't have to weed your pond, you don't have to mow it, you don't have to do much to it.
The journey to the pond begins at the patio. Mark and Debi had a plan when they designed the family pool.
The concept here was to make it look as if the swimming pool was connected with the spring. And the negative edge on the pool, that was the view that we wanted pretty much from this perspective, that it was just cascading over and going to onto the springs.
Mark also wanted plants to be his visual and physical guides to view the pond and garden from all perspectives. But his journey into gardening didn't stop after the first plantings.
I've planted and replanted and gotten rid of the things I didn't like and put different things in.
And since Mark's first gardens, the trees have grown, contributing their perspective to his plans.
A lot of the plants that we had previously want more sun than what they're getting now, and so I progressively had to go to more shade-type plants. And we've done a lot of work on the trees. Part of the reason we bought this lot is because it had big trees already, and it's kind of hard to plant a tree and get them to be this size. But we've had a lot of work raising the lower branches so that you can see under the trees and I can get more light into my plants. But I'm constantly changing. The plants, many of the perennials that we planted in 1996 got old and leggy, and even though you trim them back, they just didn't look that good. And so about 3 years ago, I had a mass exodus of perennial plants and brought in a bunch of new ones. I had Cheryl McLaughlin and Kevin Wood come and and help me with getting a new look. My wife wanted color more, and so I've kept most of my perennials, but I've put sprinkles of annuals throughout the pond area and the garden. When I first built this property, along with Kurt Arnett, my plan was to have the entire garden Texas native plants, and I have over 200 species of native Texas plants here. The problem is you have those times where there's not really something actively blooming, and it's beautiful. It's green in different shapes and sizes. I found that sprinkling color that's year-round in certain locations really adds to the beauty.
The garden's journey is like the one Mark and Debbie took in the beginning when they met. Never static, but always open to another reflective chapter.
The pond was what I started with, and then over the years added on sections, and they all have their different character, and if they were all built at the same time, they may have looked more alike, but as I aged, as the garden aged, I had different thoughts about planning and development. You're not really a gardener if you don't have a new area to work on. I am a weekend gardener. I don't consider myself a plant expert at all. But I love plants, and they're fun to work with. And sometimes people ask me the name of a plant, and I'll tell them, you know, I don't recall the name, I just know what it looks like, and I love it. And the names are almost unimportant to me. It's just enjoying the plant for what it is. I have a very busy life as an obstetrician, and during the week rarely get a chance to see my garden, but weekends this is a place I find some solitude and some beauty. There's nothing quite like being in my pond and having the perfume of all the lilies, and you almost feel like you're in heaven out there. It's such a nice experience. But I am pretty much a weekend gardener, and the scope of my project is probably bigger than a lot of other people, but I'm kind of the belief if you don't do the gardening yourself, you don't respect it and don't enjoy it nearly as much as if someone else is tending to it. And so it's a part of you when you're in the garden. It's an expression of who you are and what you like, and so that's part of the joy of gardening, is the experience that one gets from it.